We all love to look back on the history of the PlayStation console with rose-colored glasses, but boy have we been through some major ups and downs with Sony over the years. Remember the ill-conceived concept of the boomerang controller? Yeah, that would have been a disaster. So as we all get hyped up for the game-changing release of the PS5, let's go through a little reality check as we take a stroll down memory lane and cover everything you need to know about the journey we've been on from the PS1 all the way to the PS5. There's nothing like the original. The one that started it all. The PlayStation Classic. Oh, wow. No, not the recently released PlayStation Classic console with bundled games. That was a huge disappointment. We're talking about the top-loading solid gray PS1 and its little teeny brother, the PS1 Slim. The original PlayStation was a game-changer for the industry and sparked a console war, not because of gamers choosing sides, but because of the gaming companies themselves. In the early 1990s, Nintendo and Sega were in such a heated gaming battle that no one would have conceived Mario and Sonic doing friendly Olympic challenges together years later. The plumber and the speedster simply hated each other, and their parent companies were out to defeat the competition. And this is where Sony snuck in. At first, they were teaming up with Nintendo, creating a disc-based hybrid known as a Nintendo PlayStation. Could you even imagine? Well, before the system could launch and before Yoshi got his own 3D platforming game, the relationship went sour. Nintendo pretty much ghosted Sony, and the company abandoned the PlayStation concept to release the N64. Sure, Sony's feelings were hurt, but they relented, and the PlayStation was born in 1994 with a global release in '95. In other words, thanks Nintendo.
Thank you!
The PlayStation didn't even have to lose out on their Yoshi game concept either. The whole thing was simply repackaged as Croc. Remember that one? It was no Crash Bandicoot, but still a pretty fun early PlayStation title. Not only did the OG PlayStation aim for a new generation of gamers, but the bright and vivid worlds of Sonic and Mario were kind of pushed aside for a gritty and dark gaming style. Just look at some of the commercials and promotional ads for the system. Those Twisted Metal commercials felt like a spin-off of Stephen King's It. The console thrived on the exclusive titles and quickly built a strong gaming community, with high-speed games and impressive graphics, for the time. While we look back fondly on some of the top exclusive PlayStation titles like Gran Turismo, Tomb Raider, Tekken 3, and Metal Gear Solid, there were some serious duds that we'd rather forget about. Anybody remember Bubsy 3D? That game felt like a major Mario 64 ripoff, and was a rushed and pretty much unplayable pile of garbage. Its levels were disorienting, felt empty, and was a major miss for the PlayStation console. Luckily, there were plenty of other great games to fill the void. The rise of the PlayStation also meant the rise of game disc scratches, smudges, and disc read errors that could frustrate us to no end. Forget blowing in a cartridge to get glitchy Mario to work better. One little scratch on your precious PS1 CD could lead to Lara Croft freezing mid-air as she made an epic leap. Third-party companies ate up our money as we purchased disc cleaners and laser cleaners or tried all kinds of urban legend cleaning methods. Like the toothpaste one. Man, who's the sicko that came up with that? Ugh. Besides the games, one of the great concepts for the PlayStation was the controller, a design concept which has been upgraded over the years but still includes the same basic formula. Players use 4 input buttons, with shapes for symbols and have access to 4 triggers. The analog sticks would not be introduced until 1997 with the PlayStation Dual Analog Controller, a precursor to the DualShock series of controllers. Since the PS5 is on the way, it's no surprise that the PS1 was followed up with the PS2. But the world of gaming was about to get bigger. While Sony was competing with Nintendo and Sega still, Microsoft was also entering the fray and gearing up for the launch of the Xbox console. Sony knew they had to go even bigger and better with the PS2, and boy oh boy did they deliver.
PlayStation 2.
PlayStation 2. Newest, fastest video game system ever.
The PS2 was leaps and bounds above the PS1, and it was even backwards compatible with all PS1 games. Something that Sony would struggle a bit with down the line. It was the year 2000. The future had officially arrived. It was the new millennium. Sony continued shelling out those odd dystopian gaming commercials, but we were all sucked in anyway. The PS2 ditched the drab gray for a sleek black. Another design choice that stuck through the years. Improved graphics, memory, and processing led to even bigger and better titles. Oh yeah, and the console could play DVDs, which were exploding at the time. The PS2 came packaged with the DualShock 2 controller, and boy, those analog buttons were smooth as butter. The one downfall with the launch of the PS2? Those dreaded blue discs. There was nothing worse than purchasing a new game only to open the game and see a blue design printed on the bottom. Sure, it looked cool, but those beautiful blue hues resulted in more disc read errors than game overs. Eventually, Sony fixed the blue disc mistake, correcting both discs and consoles, but it was far too late for many gamers. And sticking with the whole color scheme, if players weren't dealing with blue disc problems, they may have had the red screen error. Pretty much a sign of a broken PS2. For most people, the console was about as useful as a brick whenever that red screen error persisted. Even with the blue discs piling up at GameStops and not selling, the PS2 was still an explosive success. We're talking unprecedented numbers. The PS2 sold over 155 million devices worldwide and is still ranked as the top console ever sold. The only thing that even came close was the Nintendo DS, and to be fair, Nintendo kinda cheated, releasing a whole collection of different DS consoles, which helped boost numbers up to over 154 million lifetime sales. Even with the DS creeping up, the PS2 will likely remain the king of consoles for a long time, if not forever. The massive library of games certainly helped the boost in console sales. But the true legacy of Grand Theft Auto began on the PS2 with the open sandbox world of Grand Theft Auto 3. That was just the beginning. Each GTA sequel would outperform the last on the PS2, with GTA San Andreas selling well over 20 million copies on the PS2 alone. Never mind the subsequent re-releases for other consoles and PC. The PS2 also thrived on some of the same franchises as the original console. Gran Turismo 3 and 4 were big hits, as well as the new entries in the Metal Gear Solid series. Newer hits like Kingdom Hearts and God of War brought a world of true gaming to home consoles, and the advanced PS2 graphics helped blow the competition out of the water. While Microsoft held strong thanks to the world of Halo, Sega was dispersed from the console wars with the failure of the Dreamcast. And Nintendo couldn't quite hit the mark with the GameCube, despite some memorable titles. Even with new successes and characters gaining hold, there were some franchises who kinda fell by the wayside. Platformers like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro failed to capture the same success and excitement. Even the breakout Smash Tomb Raider was pretty disappointing for the PS2. The games just couldn't keep up with the evolving players and are now more of a nostalgic relic rather than modern games that we actually still enjoy. Even as we parted with some favorites, Sony was dominating in every form. But like every great leader, the success got to their heads a little bit. Technology was advancing faster than a console could keep up. PC gamers were laughing in our faces as they easily swapped out motherboards and graphic cards to handle the loads of the newest games. And then the PS3 was announced. How would Sony follow up one of the greatest consoles of all time? With a lackluster promotional build filled with all kinds of broken promises? You can't really blame Sony, though. The PS2 was in so many living rooms. They needed to stick close to the same successful blueprint, but toss in a few attention-grabbing features to wow their current crop of gamers. Unfortunately, they thought they could do that with the boomerang controller. Yikes. Sony managed to create something uglier than the N64 controller, something that looked more uncomfortable than the Nintendo Power Glove. That thing was a nightmare. It actually seemed more bulky than the original Xbox controller, and thankfully Sony threw that boomerang controller out, and it never returned. Not that the 6-axis or DualShock 3 was much of an improvement, but far better than Sony's initial idea. Okay, one blunder down. What would be next for the PS3? Oh yeah, backwards compatibility. The PS2 was an ultimate gaming machine, offering access to every single PS1 game. So obviously the PS3 would do the same, right? Nope. Well, kind of. Only for a select few. The good news was the PS3 could play all PS1 games. Phew, your collection's safe. The bad news, only 2 models from the PS3 launch were compatible with PS2 games. The PS3 20GB non-Wi-Fi console included a PS2 game chip, as well as the 60GB model with Wi-Fi included. Both could read all PS2 games, but hardware upgrades and the transition to the PS3 Slim left all that backwards compatibility in the dust. Essentially, Sony had a big mess on their hands. Gamers scrambled to make charts showcasing which consoles worked with PS2 games and which ones didn't. Even with the mess, Sony still had a lot of promise with the PS3. The hard drives could download full games from the PlayStation Store, the Blu-ray drive played HD movies, and the clunky PlayStation ports were replaced with USB ports, wireless DualShock controllers, and much better online gaming. The PS3 would arrive in 2006, and Sony had some bold predictions about the console. Despite technology moving faster than an Elon Musk SpaceX rocket, we had this brilliant quote from Sony Computer Entertainment America head Kaz Hirai. The PlayStation 3 is going to be a console that's going to be with you again for 10 years. 10 years? Well, 7 years later, the PS3 would be replaced with the PS4. But before that, the PS3 felt like Sony's way of adapting new technology and getting some of the kinks worked out. As games became more online-oriented, new titles like Call of Duty began making waves and gaining legions of followers. No longer were gamers playing 4-player split-screen on GoldenEye 64. They wanted the whole TV to themselves as they connected with other players from around the world. Well, up until there was another annoying connection error, or, something so horrible we simply referred to it as the 2011 PlayStation Network outage. 23 days. No online gaming. Millions of accounts compromised. Yeah, it was about time for Sony to launch a new console. Riding the ups and downs of success, Sony took the positives of the PS2, learned from the mistakes of the PS3, and rolled everything into one for the launch of the PS4. Released in 2013, the PS4 completely revamped the DualShock controller. Sure, it had some gimmicky features like the light bar, but the comfort and performance was certainly impressive. Games like Marvel's Spider-Man, Uncharted 4, and the God of War remake had shown the impressive power and ability of the console. The PS4 Pro introduced us to the world of 4K gaming, and online services expanded to include on-demand games, cloud-based gaming, and instant access to all types of streaming services. Sure, launch games like Knack were extremely disappointing, but the PS4 didn't stay stagnant. Sony continued to improve the console and deliver for gamers. Backwards compatibility was completely ditched for all digital classic games, which is a major bummer for the wallet, but a small complaint among all the great highlights. And now we're here. 2020, the PS5. The console wars are more relevant than ever, and Sony is doing everything in their power to win. The PS5 is rumored to have removable cartridges for storage, will boast a solid-state drive for virtually no loading time, include backwards compatibility for all past Sony consoles, and impress us all with the new controllers. Ultra-sensitive triggers will make games feel more realistic. The analog sticks will adapt to all types of games and situations. Sony knows what gamers want and will deliver with standard 4K graphics and the ability for 8K support in the future. Sony has been on quite a journey over the years, and that journey will only continue. Let's just hope their successes are better than their failures, so we can get the most out of the PS5 and beyond. Wow, what a history of gaming! What's your favorite Sony console? Are you looking forward to the PS5? What features impress you the most? What's their biggest failure? Well, let us know in the comments and stick around The Gamer for more great video game content. We're releasing new videos every couple of days. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the channel.